Hello friends. In a previous video we had a chat with Pops Coffee about the genius of Shaye Cohn, and in particular we covered her own cornet playing and her leadership qualities when she's working with that great band Tuba. But we have to remember that she's also a quite formidable composer of music for jazz bands. So today I'm going to start by asking Pops Coffee, Pops, who do you think actually most influenced Shaye? Is she copying any particular composers? I don't think it's accurate to say that Shaye actually copies anybody, but she must surely have been influenced by all the great traditional jazz composers of 100 years ago. I used to try to detect influences in her music, and I used to think that I could sense that she was inspired by Jelly Roll Morton and Elmer Sherbel, such composers as that. But I've come more to the belief that she's simply playing in the tradition that such composers established. She herself is so clever, so complex, sometimes unorthodox in what she does. She's her own woman. Um, but obviously, as I say, her music would not have been possible without the long tradition of this kind of music. What she doesn't do is just accept the simple conventional patterns, such as a verse of 16 bars followed by a chorus of 32 bars, in which the 32 are usually four groups of eight that we could call A, B, A. You won't find things as simple as that in Shaye's writing. She likes to experiment far beyond that. I think it's a bit early to say yet whether Shaye will take a place in the pantheon of great composers for traditional jazz bands. I think it'll probably need a lot of other bands than Tuba around the world to start playing her music to make it famous. But the problem is, as far as I know, her music is not published. So for other bands to get hold of it and play it, they have an essential difficulty there. Now, even if you had a band leader who was prepared to sit down with some manuscript paper and a pen and simply listen bar by bar to some of Shaye's music and try to write it down, I think it would be immensely difficult to get all the melodies right and also to get all the chord progressions right. So that's a major problem before anybody else can play it. And then on top of that, if another band did try to play some of Shaye's music, I think they would technically be in breach of copyright, and she might be very unhappy about it if she hadn't given permission. By the way, on this matter of getting hold of the music, it's a big problem for me because I try to listen carefully to whatever they play, and I'm using my ear. My ear is far from perfect. So I'd make comments such as, I think that this has got three themes, or this bit is in the key of A flat. I can never be 100% sure, even though I'm doing my very best. But to get back to the point, I think Shaye will one day be regarded as one of the great jazz composers. Who knows, her tunes such as Blue Chime Stomp might become as famous as Jelly Roll Morton's Black Bottom Stomp, and her Mabel's Dream. You remember Mabel's Dream was written by Ike Smith, I think, for King Oliver. Well, Shaye has written a Nigel's Dream, so maybe that will become famous too. Can you tell us, Pops, how and when Shaye started composing for Tuba? I think you'd have to go back to their trip to Australia, which they did when the band was quite young. And while she was there, I believe it was that Shaye composed Salamanca Blues and Pyramid Strut. Now, Salamanca Blues, I believe, is named after Salamanca Market. I think it's a street market in Hobart, Tasmania. And although this is a very early composition by Shaye, it's already very beautiful and quite complex. For example, it starts, unusually, with the trombone playing a 12-bar blues solo. And then after that, there's an otherworldly sort of theme of about 16 bars. And then later on, it changes key It started in F, I think, and it moves to A flat, and we get some 12-bar blues in A flat, which allow for breaks on some of the middle bars. So quite an interesting, really early composition from Shaye. And then, of course, she wrote Pyramid Strut. Now, I understand that this is really a joke title because Weston Borghese, who was on the trip playing banjo, said that Shaye called it that as a tribute to the Great Pyramids of Australia. Anyway, so it's got a joke title, but it's a very complex piece in its structure. It's got lots of breaks and a variety of recurring motifs. So again, something quite technical and clever from a young composer. What about as the years went on? Did Shaye's compositions become even more complex? I would say they didn't become more complex, but they certainly remained very subtle. For example, think of Nigel's Dream. This was about 2015 she composed it. It has two themes. The first one is 32 bars, which is sort of 16 plus the same 16 repeated. That is in the key of C minor. And then she has a second theme, again 32 bars, again 16 plus 16, and this is in the key of E flat, which musicians will know is related to C minor. So you've got that little subtlety to begin with, and then also it allows for breaks, particularly in the second theme, so that's a little cleverness as well. Let's take another one. Pearl River Stomp, everybody knows and likes. You remember how it starts coming down through a sort of chord, da, 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 da. Well, it's got a basic 16-bar melody, played in B flat, by the way. But it moves later, if I'm not mistaken, into D flat, really subtly and imperceptibly. And also there's a section late on in it where it's built up in such a way that it trades two bars. First of all, trombone taking two, then the cornet taking two, and then later on the cornet leading with two, trombone responding with two. So again, quite a lot of complexity in it. And let me ask you, Pops, are there any moments in Shaye's compositions that strike you as particularly magical or brilliant? Oh, yes. I love to tell you about the arpeggios. Now, for anybody who doesn't know, an arpeggio is when you play the various notes of a chord one at a time. So it will be something like boom, 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 boom. And if you imagine that each one of those notes is taken by a different instrument, so maybe sousaphone, trombone, cornet, clarinet, and let's say you then do that twice or even four times and you extend the chord further up, well, that's a little trick that Shaye is very fond of, as she uses it in Blue Chime Stomp, which has got two themes in B flat, but I think she puts one of these little arpeggio breaks in the middle. But especially in Some Kind of Shake, that tune that everybody knows and loves, dum dum da dum dum da dum. But in the middle of it, she has this bridge where it's absolutely extraordinary how she goes from Todd at the bottom right up to the clarinet Craig, each one taking just one note in turn and having to hold on to their note. They've got to hit the right note at precisely the right moment. And not only that, I think she does it over two separate chords, so it takes up about 8 bars of music in total. It really is absolutely amazing. And if you imagine yourself in a jazz band being one of those instruments and having to get your note at spot on the right moment, a correct pitch and so on, it's extremely difficult. But that's what Shaye builds into these compositions. Let's have a listen to the one from Some Kind of Shake. Yes, aren't those arpeggios absolutely marvellous and even more exciting when you see them performed in live performances, because the band is under such pressure, but they always seem to get them spot on, absolutely right, and they have to play them more than once in the course of the tune. Anyway, I'd like to turn to another topic, the matter of keys. I know you're very interested in keys, Pops. And most jazz music, of course, is composed in major keys, just a very small percentage in minor keys. Now, what about Shaye? Is she interested in minor keys? Oh, most definitely. And this brings us to a special category within Shaye's range of compositions. She has written some hauntingly beautiful tunes. Think of Elysian Fields and Deep Bayou Moan. If you get them in your head, they'll go round and you'll be humming them all day long. They're absolutely exquisite, and they're quite different from all the other work that we've been talking about so far. And it is the minor key, of course, that does the trick. I think I'm right in saying Elysian Fields is in G minor and Deep Bayou Moan is in F minor. And the other interesting thing about Elysian Fields, by the way, you know that jazz music usually comes in blocks of 4s and 8 bars, but you think particularly of 8. But in Elysian Fields, there are sections of 9 bars and 17 bars. So she extends the usual pattern. But I think we ought to have a listen to, let's say, the beginning of Deep Bayou Moan, because it starts with Shaye playing that really haunting melody for a few bars, but then notice when after a few moments the clarinet and the trombone join in and we have some absolutely luscious chords. Yes, Pops, that was absolutely beautiful, haunting, and with an air of melancholy about it. Now, are there still more tunes for you to talk about, or have we exhausted all those that Shaye has written so far? Oh, yes, there's quite a few more. Think, for example, of Owl Call Blues, that very lovely, gentle song that Shaye wrote in collaboration with Erica. That's a favourite of many of the fans. And then there was the complicated Tangled Blues. It really is tricky to sort out what's going on within that one. In more recent times, we've had Trickster's Rag, which seems to me to be in the key of G, which is very rarely used by jazz bands. And I can detect in it 2 themes, which seem to be 20 bars and 16 bars. But right at the end, there's a most extraordinary finish. There's a section of about 22 bars, I think, where it replays some of the motifs from the earlier themes, and then it kind of comes to a dead stop. It hits a buffer, and then after that it resumes, slowing down and reaching a final chord. So it's an amazing finish to a tune. I think that's worth having a listen to. Yes, that was an absolutely amazing way of ending a tune. Thanks for reminding us of that, Pops. And now, as we're drawing to a close, would you like to suggest something that would be a good way of finishing this video, leaving us on a happy note? I suggest we finish with something that will set our feet tapping. How about an extract from Some Kind of Shake? And we can fade out on that. Right, here goes. That's it, everybody. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.